The transport ship tore through the atmosphere like a dying comet, trailing fire and debris across the purple sky of Telos 7. Inside the crumbling passenger bay, 7-year-old Nia pressed herself against the wall, her small hands gripping the safety harness as everything around her shook and screamed. Metal groaned. People shouted. Then came the impact that turned the world sideways. When silence finally settled over the wreckage, Nia opened her eyes to smoke and sparking wires. Her father's research station had broken free from its moorings and lay smashed 3 rows ahead. She unbuckled with trembling fingers and crawled through the twisted metal, calling for him. She found him pinned beneath a collapsed ceiling panel, his breathing shallow and wet. Blood darkened his gray research coat. He smiled when he saw her, though pain creased the corners of his eyes. "Little one," he whispered, reaching for her hand. "The case, get the case." Nia followed his gaze to the reinforced container that had tumbled into the corner, somehow intact among the destruction. She knew what lived inside. Badger. Her father's research specimen, the enhanced honey badger he had been studying for 3 years. The creature terrified most of the crew with its aggression during feeding times, but her father insisted it showed remarkable intelligence. "Dad, we need to get you out," Nia said, tugging uselessly at the panel. "No time," he coughed and red flecked his lips. "Listen carefully. The emergency beacon is broken. The collective will come to scavenge the ship. You have to hide in the jungle, take supplies, take Badger." "I can't leave you." "You must." His grip tightened on her fingers. "Badger will protect you. I designed him to bond with one person. Let him smell my coat, then wear it. He'll know you're mine. You'll be his now." Tears blurred her vision. "Dad, please." "Stay brave, little one." His voice faded to almost nothing. "The jungle will hide you. Trust Badger. He's more than anyone knows." His hand went limp in hers. Nia sat there for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. The ship's emergency systems wheezed and sparked around her. Finally, she pulled her father's coat free and put it on. It dragged on the ground, too big, smelling of his soap and coffee. She approached the case carefully. Through the reinforced glass window, 2 dark eyes watched her with unsettling focus. Badger was smaller than she expected for something so feared, about the size of a large house cat, with coarse gray and black fur. His face bore the distinctive white stripe of his species, but his build looked heavier, more muscular than natural honey badgers. The case's lock had cracked in the crash. Nia hesitated, then pressed the release. The door hissed open. Badger emerged slowly, sniffing the air. His claws clicked on the metal floor. He looked at the destruction, at the bodies, at Nia. She held perfectly still, remembering her father's words. Let him smell the coat. The creature approached with surprising caution. He circled her once, then sat back on his haunches and studied her face. His nose twitched as he caught her father's scent on the oversized coat. Something shifted in those dark eyes. Recognition, maybe, or calculation. "He's gone," Nia whispered, not sure why she spoke to an animal. "It's just us now." Badger made a low sound, not quite a growl. He moved to the wrecked research station and sniffed at her father's still form. After a moment, he returned to Nia and did something unexpected. He pressed his head briefly against her leg, then moved toward the torn opening in the hull. He stopped at the gap and looked back at her. The message was clear: follow me. Nia gathered what she could carry: an emergency supply pack, a water purifier, medical kit, the survival blanket. Her hands shook as she worked, but she forced herself to focus like her father taught her during their camping trips on the colony. One task at a time. Stay calm, think. Outside, the jungle pressed close to the crash site. Strange plants with blue leaves grew in thick tangles. The air felt heavy and warm, filled with sounds she didn't recognize. Clicks and whistles and deep thrumming calls from creatures she couldn't see. Badger waited at the tree line, watching her navigate the debris field. When she caught up, he started moving through the undergrowth with purpose. Not running, but not wandering either. He knew where he was going. They walked for hours. Nia's legs ached and her throat burned with thirst, but Badger kept a steady pace just ahead. Twice he stopped suddenly, his body going rigid. Both times, Nia heard something large moving through the jungle nearby. Both times, Badger led her silently in a different direction until the sounds faded. As purple daylight began to dim, he brought her to a rocky outcrop with a shallow cave. The opening was small, defensible. He entered first, checking the interior before emerging and sitting at the entrance. Safe, his posture seemed to say, "Rest here." Nia collapsed against the cave wall, finally letting herself cry. She was alone on an alien moon with a research animal as her only companion. The collective would come. Monsters probably lived in this jungle. She was 7 years old and her father was dead. Badger entered the cave and settled near her, not touching but close enough that she could hear his breathing. His dark eyes reflected the last purple light from outside. After a while, her crying stopped. She pulled the survival blanket around her shoulders and opened a ration bar with shaking hands. She broke off half and offered it to Badger without thinking. He sniffed it, then gently took it from her palm. They ate together in silence as darkness fell over Telos 7. Somewhere in the distance, something roared. Badger's ears swiveled toward the sound, but he didn't move from his position near Nia. She pulled her father's coat tighter and whispered the last words he'd said to her. "Stay brave, little one." Badger made that low sound again, softer this time, almost like acknowledgement. Tomorrow would bring new dangers. But tonight, in this small cave on an alien world, a child and a creature formed an unspoken bond that would soon be tested against armies, generals, and monsters beyond either of their understanding. The honey badger had chosen his charge, and honey badgers never let go. 3 days had passed since the crash, and Nia was learning that survival meant accepting help she never expected. Badger left the cave before dawn each morning and returned with food, small creatures that looked like 6-legged rabbits. Strange fruits he tested first by eating a small piece, then bringing her the rest only if he showed no ill effects. He even found a water source, leading her to a clear stream that bubbled up from underground rocks. She started calling him Fang after watching him tear into their dinner on the second night. The name seemed to fit. He acknowledged it with what she imagined was approval, tilting his head when she said it. Nia spent her time making the cave more livable. She arranged rocks to create a fire pit near the entrance where the smoke could escape. She organized their meager supplies. She tried not to think about the bodies in the ship or the fact that no rescue had come. On the afternoon of the third day, Fang returned from hunting with his fur standing on end. He dropped a dead rabbit thing at her feet, then moved to the cave entrance and growled. A real growl this time, deep and threatening. Nia grabbed the emergency pack and pressed herself against the back wall. "What is it?" Fang's lips curled back from his teeth. Through the cave opening, Nia heard something that made her blood turn cold. Voices, not human voices, clicking, chirping sounds that formed words in a language she didn't understand. The collective had arrived. 2 figures appeared at the tree line below their outcrop. They stood upright like humans, but their skin was a mottled green-gray, and their faces had too many angles. They wore armor that looked organic, like it had been grown rather than built. Both carried weapons that hummed with energy. Fang went absolutely still. Nia recognized that stillness from watching Predator documentaries with her father, the moment before the strike. The soldiers moved closer, scanning the area with devices mounted on their wrists. One pointed toward the cave. They started climbing the rocks. Fang waited until they were halfway up. Then he exploded into motion. The first soldier never saw him coming. Fang hit like a missile, all claws and teeth aimed at the gaps in the armor. He found the exposed joint at the neck and bit down with enhanced jaws designed to crack bone. The soldier made a gurgling sound and fell backward off the rocks. The second soldier swung his weapon around, but Fang was already moving. He zigzagged up the rocks with impossible agility, too fast to track. When the energy beam finally discharged, it hit stone and exploded into fragments. Fang leaped from above, landing on the soldier's helmet. His claws found the eye slots. What happened next would stay with Nia forever. The soldier screamed and tried to grab Fang, but the honey badger was relentless. He tore at any exposed flesh, bit through the armor's weak points, and when the soldier fell, Fang didn't stop. He kept attacking until there was no movement left. Silence returned to the jungle, broken only by Fang's heavy breathing. Nia realized she'd been holding her breath. She let it out slowly, her whole body shaking. Fang checked both bodies thoroughly, making sure they were dead. Then he did something that surprised her. He grabbed one soldier's weapon in his teeth and dragged it toward the cave. The weapon was nearly as long as he was, but he managed to haul it inside and drop it at Nia's feet. Tool, his actions seemed to say, might be useful. He returned to the bodies and began covering them with loose rocks and vegetation, hiding the evidence. Within 20 minutes, no casual observer would notice anything wrong. Only someone looking carefully would spot the disturbed area. When he finished, Fang came back to Nia. His fur was matted with blood that wasn't his. He looked at her with those dark, intelligent eyes, and she understood. He was checking if she was afraid of him now. Nia reached out with a trembling hand and touched his head. "You saved us." Fang leaned into her touch for just a moment. Then he moved to the cave entrance and resumed his guard position, though she noticed he sat where he could watch both the jungle and her. That night, Nia couldn't sleep. She kept seeing the fight replay in her mind. The speed, the precision, the absolute fearlessness of a creature that should have been no match for armored soldiers. Her father had called Fang enhanced, but she was beginning to understand that meant something far more significant than she'd realized. Around midnight, Fang brought her a piece of cloth he'd torn from one soldier's pack. Inside was something that looked like food rations. He'd somehow known what they were. "You're scary smart, aren't you?" she whispered. He made that soft sound again. Then he did something he'd never done before. He curled up right next to her, close enough that she could feel his warmth. When she put her hand on his back, he didn't move away. They fell asleep like that, a child and her protector, while distant sounds suggested more collective forces were searching the jungle. Over the next week, it happened 3 more times. Soldiers came looking for their missing comrades. Each time, Fang fought with the same brutal efficiency. He learned from each encounter, adapted his tactics, started setting simple traps using vines and loose rocks. Nia watched him drag bodies away and hide them. She saw him memorize patrol patterns. She realized her father had created something extraordinary, not just an aggressive animal, but a thinking, planning, protecting force of nature. On the 8th day, she found Fang examining the captured weapon, turning it over with his paws like he was trying to understand how it worked. When he noticed her watching, he pushed it toward her. "Learn this," his gesture said. "You might need it." So Nia learned. She figured out the safety mechanism, the trigger, how to check the charge. Fang sat beside her the whole time, and she could swear he was nodding approval when she did something right. That evening, as they shared another meal of jungle game and salvaged rations, Nia finally understood what her father had meant. Badger will protect you. He's more than anyone knows. Fang wasn't just enhanced for aggression or strength. He'd been designed to bond, to think, to adapt, to choose one person and defend them against anything. And he'd chosen her. She wrapped her arms around his stocky body, burying her face in his coarse fur. "Thank you, Fang, for everything." He tolerated the hug for a few seconds, then gently pulled away and returned to watching the jungle. Always vigilant, always ready. Somewhere out there, the collective was getting frustrated. Soldiers were disappearing. Equipment was being lost. And none of them suspected that their enemy was a 20-pound ball of fury that had decided a human child was worth dying for. The honey badger had tasted first blood, and he found he had quite the appetite for protecting his charge. General Croth studied the reports with growing irritation. 15 soldiers missing, 7 confirmed dead when their tracking beacons finally led recovery teams to hastily concealed bodies. 8 simply vanished without a trace, all within a 5-kilometer radius of the human crash site. His second-in-command, a younger officer named Drell, stood at attention across the tactical table. Sir, the patterns suggest an organized resistance, multiple combatants using guerrilla tactics. No, Croth traced a claw across the holographic map. Look at the attack signatures, single attacker, small, ground-based, fast. One creature did this, Drell's voice carried doubt. The humans crashed 3 weeks ago. Standard procedure says we investigate for salvageable technology, eliminate survivors, move on. Instead, we're bleeding soldiers to something that kills them and hides the evidence. Croth pulled up helmet footage from one of the last soldiers before his camera was destroyed. There, freeze that. The image showed a blur of gray and black fur. Small body, powerful jaws clamped on the soldier's throat. But the eyes showed clear intention and intelligence. What is that? Drell leaned closer. Earth creature from the research manifest on the transport. Croth had done his homework. Called a honey badger. This one was genetically enhanced in some human laboratory. The manifest note said aggressive tendencies, high pain tolerance, enhanced problem-solving capabilities. Enhanced how much? Croth closed the image. Enough to kill 15 of our soldiers and somehow know to hide the bodies so we waste time searching. Enough to recognize patrol patterns and avoid our sweeps. This isn't a dumb animal acting on instinct, Drell. Something is directing it. The human survivors. Only one life sign detected in the area, small, child-sized. Croth pulled up the bioscan data. Age approximately 7 standard years, but here's what's interesting. The life sign never moves during our patrol times. It stays hidden. The attacks only happen when soldiers get within 1 kilometer of its location. Understanding dawned on Drell's face. The creature is protecting the child. And it's very good at its job. Croth closed the tactical display. Prepare a full squad, heavy armor, multi-spectrum scanners. We're going to end this personally. 3 days later, Croth led 12 soldiers into the jungle zone where the attacks had occurred. They moved in formation, scanners sweeping constantly. The general had studied every report, every death, every tactical pattern. He knew where the child was hiding. A cave system in the Rocky Hills 2 kilometers south of the crash site. The jungle around them pulsed with alien life. Blue-leafed plants rustled in the warm breeze. Creatures chirped and called from the canopy. Croth ignored it all, focused on the mission. They were 1 kilometer from the target when the attacks began. The rear guard soldier died first. Something small and fast hit him from the side, found the gap between his helmet and chest plate, and severed the major blood vessel there. He fell without a sound. "Contact rear," someone shouted. But the creature was already gone. Croth ordered the squad into a defensive circle, weapons out. Scanners showed nothing. The jungle had gone quiet. Then the creature hit again, this time from above, dropping from a tree branch onto a soldier's shoulders. It rode him down, claws tearing at exposed joints, teeth finding vulnerable spots. 2 soldiers fired, but the creature leaped away before the shots. Connected. Croth caught a clear glimpse this time. The honey badger was smaller than he expected, maybe 8 kilograms. But it moved like violence given form. No hesitation, no fear, just calculated aggression aimed at maximum damage. "Scatter pattern," Croth ordered. "Don't cluster, it uses our formations against us." The squad spread out, but the jungle terrain made it impossible to maintain visual contact with everyone. The badger used that. It picked off soldiers one by one, striking from unexpected angles, never staying in one place long enough to target. Croth watched his squad shrink. 8 soldiers, 6, 4, each attack lasted seconds, each retreat was perfectly timed. The creature was learning their tactics faster than they could adapt. When only Croth and Drell remained, the general made a decision. Fall back now. They retreated in good order, weapons ready, but the attack stopped. The creature had made its point. Come closer to the child, die. Simple message, brutally delivered. Back at base camp, Croth pulled up the helmet footage again. He watched the badger fight frame by frame. Saw how it aimed for joints and gaps, how it used the environment, how it anticipated soldier movements. "This isn't possible," Drell said quietly. An animal can't think like this. The humans enhanced it, made it smarter, stronger, more aggressive. Croth froze on a frame showing the badger's face. Those dark eyes held something that looked almost like determination. And it bonded with that child. That's what the research notes mentioned. Single-person bonding, complete loyalty. What do we do, sir? Croth thought for a long moment. He'd fought resistance fighters across 3 sectors, hunted rebels through asteroid fields, led assaults on fortified positions, but he'd never faced an opponent quite like this. An enemy that had no fear, no sense of self-preservation when it came to defending its charge. We use better bait, he finally said. The creature protects the child because it sees her as vulnerable, so we make the child think she's being rescued, fake a human distress signal. When she comes out of hiding, we take her. Then the creature will come to us on our terms. And if it doesn't fall for it? Croth pulled up the tactical map again, marking the cave location. Then we deploy the Ripper. If the badger wants to protect that child so badly, let's see how it handles a real predator. Drell shifted uncomfortably. Sir, the Ripper is designed for hunting armored resistance fighters. Using it against a child seems. The child is irrelevant. The creature is the target. Croth's voice went cold. It's killed 15 of my soldiers, made me look incompetent in front of command. I want it dead, Drell. I don't care what we have to do. He stared at the frozen image of the honey badger, those intelligent eyes seeming to look right back at him through the screen. Somewhere in that jungle, a child and her protector were hiding. They thought they were safe. General Croth would teach them otherwise. He'd hunted dangerous prey before. This would be no different. But deep in a cave 2 kilometers away, Fang sat at the entrance, watching the jungle. His ears picked up the distant sounds of collective soldiers retreating. His nose analyzed the wind for threats. And somewhere in his enhanced brain, he processed the patterns of the last few weeks. They kept coming, they would keep coming, and he would keep killing them. Because the small human was his to protect, his to keep safe, and the universe could send armies, generals, or monsters, it didn't matter. Honey badgers never let go. Nia woke to Fang's urgent chittering. She'd learned his sounds over the past month. This one meant danger close. She grabbed her emergency pack and the salvaged weapon, following Fang to the cave entrance. Dawn light painted the jungle purple and gold, but something was wrong. The usual morning sounds were absent. No chirping, no rustling. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Then she heard it, a deep rhythmic thumping, footsteps, heavy ones. Fang's fur stood completely on end. He made a sound she'd never heard before, almost like a whine, fear. He was actually afraid. Through the trees below, something moved. At first, Nia thought it was a machine. Then it stepped into a clearing, and she realized with horror that it was alive. The Ripper stood 3 meters tall on 4 thick legs. Its body was covered in overlapping armor plates that looked like dark metal but flexed like living tissue. The head was mostly mouth, filled with rows of serrated teeth. 6 eyes, arranged in pairs, scanned the terrain with mechanical precision. Steam vented from ports along its neck with each breath. A tracking collar around its throat pulsed with red light. Someone was controlling it, directing it. Fang, we need to... Run, Nia whispered. But Fang was already moving, not away but toward the cave exit on the opposite side. He'd found it weeks ago, a narrow tunnel that led to a stream. Their escape route. They ran. Nia struggled to keep up as Fang led her through the tunnel, her pack catching on rough stone. Behind them, the thumping grew louder. The Ripper had found their scent. They emerged at the stream just as something massive crashed through the cave behind them. Nia didn't look back. She splashed into the water, following Fang downstream where the current ran fast over smooth rocks. The Ripper burst from the cave entrance, its 6 eyes locking onto them immediately. It roared, a sound that made Nia's bones vibrate and charged. Fang led her to where the stream narrowed between 2 large boulders. They squeezed through. The Ripper couldn't follow, too large for the gap. It roared again in frustration, then began climbing over the rocks. They ran for 2 hours. The jungle terrain changed from thick undergrowth to more open forest. Fang kept checking behind them, his agitation growing. The Ripper never lost their trail. Its thermal vision and scent tracking made hiding impossible. Finally, they reached a wide river. Fast current, deep water. Nia hesitated at the edge. "I can't swim that," she said. Fang looked at the water, then at her, then back at the jungle where the Ripper's thumping grew closer. He made a decision. He grabbed her pack in his teeth and pulled her toward the water. They waded in together. The current caught them immediately. Nia struggled to keep her head up, her pack weighing her down. Fang swam beside her, trying to help, but the water was too strong. They were halfway across when the Ripper arrived. It stood on the bank, analyzing the situation. Then it did something terrifying. It walked into the water. The current that swept Nia and Fang downstream barely affected its massive weight. It waded across like the river was a minor inconvenience. They reached the far bank exhausted. Nia crawled onto the mud, coughing water. Fang shook himself dry and positioned between her and the approaching Ripper. The creature climbed out of the river, water streaming from its armor plates. It was 10 meters away, then 5. Its 6 eyes focused on Nia with predatory intensity. Fang attacked. He launched himself at the Ripper's face, aiming for the eyes like always. But the creature's armor was too thick. His claws scraped uselessly against the plates. His teeth couldn't find purchase. The Ripper shook its head and Fang went flying. He hit the ground hard but was back up instantly, circling, looking for an opening. He went for the legs, no good. The joints were protected by overlapping plates. He tried the belly. The armor there was even thicker. The Ripper's massive paw caught him on the next pass. Fang tumbled across the mud, and Nia heard him yelp in pain. He tried to stand, but one leg wouldn't support his weight. "Fang!" Nia screamed. The Ripper turned its attention to her. It took one heavy step forward. Another. Fang tried to charge again, but his injured leg collapsed. He dragged himself between Nia and the monster anyway, snarling defiance even as the Ripper raised a massive paw to crush them both. Then Nia saw it, the steam vents along the creature's neck. They pulsed with each breath, glowing faintly orange, not armor, cooling ports. Fang, the neck, the orange parts. She didn't know if he understood, but Fang had learned to trust her voice. As the Ripper's paw descended, he gathered his strength and leaped, not at the face, not at the legs, at the neck. His claws found the first cooling vent and tore. Superheated steam blasted out and the Ripper screamed. Fang didn't let go. He climbed higher, found another vent, ripped it open. Then another. The Ripper thrashed, trying to shake him off. It slammed against trees, rolled on the ground. But Fang held on with the grip that gave honey badgers their reputation. He tore into vent after vent, his paws burning from the steam, his body battered but refusing to release. The Ripper's movements became erratic. Warning lights flashed on its control collar. Its internal temperature was spiking without proper cooling. It staggered toward the river, maybe trying to use the water to cool down, but collapsed halfway there. Fang rode it down, still tearing at the vents even as the creature's movements slowed. Finally, the Ripper went still. System failure. Its 6 eyes dimmed one by one. Fang slid off the dead monster's back and limped to Nia. His fur was matted with blood, his own this time. Burns covered his paws. His left rear leg hung at a wrong angle, but he was alive. Nia pulled out the medical kit with shaking hands. Her father had taught her basic first aid. She cleaned Fang's wounds as gently as she could while he made small sounds. Of pain, she used the emergency splint on his leg, applied burn gel to his paws, wrapped him in bandages. "You're insane," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "You could have died." Fang leaned against her, exhausted. His dark eyes met hers with that familiar intelligence. "Worth it," they seemed to say, "you're worth it." They stayed by the river as night fell. Nia knew they couldn't move far with Fang injured. She kept watch while he slept, his breathing labored, his body twitching with pain dreams. In a command center kilometers away, General Croth watched the Ripper's vital signs flatline. He stared at the screen for a long moment, then closed it. "Sir," Drell asked quietly. "The creature killed the Ripper." Croth's voice was flat with disbelief. "An 8-kilogram animal killed our hunting beast." "What now?" Croth stood and walked to the window overlooking the jungle. Somewhere out there, a wounded honey badger was protecting a child with a determination that defied all logic. Against soldiers, against tactics, against a bioengineered killer, it kept winning. Not through strength or size, but through absolute refusal to quit. "Now," Croth said slowly, "we take the child alive. I want to see this creature face the one choice it can't fight through: surrender or watch her die." He would make the badger understand that some battles couldn't be won with fury alone. And if the creature still didn't quit, if it still chose to fight, then General Croth would learn what humanity had known for millions of years. Honey badgers don't care about odds. They don't care about pain. They don't care about logic. They only care about what's theirs, and they never ever let go. Fang's leg healed slowly over the next 2 weeks. Nia changed his bandages daily, watching him regain strength. He couldn't hunt properly yet, so she learned to set the simple traps he'd taught her through observation. Small game, enough to survive. They'd moved to a new hiding spot after the Ripper attack, a dense thicket near a cliff face where they could see approaches from multiple directions. Fang insisted on maintaining watch despite his injury, his ears constantly swiveling for threats. On the 16th day, Nia's salvaged scanner picked up a signal. Human emergency frequency. Her heart jumped. "Fang, look, it's a rescue beacon." She pulled up the coordinates, only 3 kilometers away. The message was automated. "Any human survivors respond. Rescue team standing by. You are not alone." Nia's hands shook as she keyed in a response. After a month of hiding, of fighting, of wondering if anyone would ever come, here it was. Rescue. Fang watched her with those dark eyes. He made a low sound. Wrong, something wrong. "It's okay," Nia said, gathering her pack. "We're going home." But Fang moved to block the thicket exit. He growled, not at her, but at the idea of leaving. His body language screamed danger. "Fang, please, I'm tired. You're hurt. We can't keep doing this." Tears welled in her eyes. "I want to go home." He stared at her for a long moment. Then, despite every instinct clearly telling him not to, he stepped aside, because she'd chosen it, because he'd learned to trust her voice like she'd learned to trust his warnings. They approached the beacon coordinates carefully. Fang limped beside her, his agitation growing with every step. The signal came from a small clearing. In the center sat a standard human emergency transmitter, still broadcasting. Nia ran forward. "Hello, is anyone here?" The transmitter sat alone. No rescue team, no ship, just the device placed deliberately in the open. Fang's warning growl came too late. Soldiers emerged from the jungle on all sides, 10 of them, weapons raised. They'd been waiting. "Secure the child," one commanded. Nia backed up, but soldiers grabbed her arms. She struggled, reaching for the weapon at her belt, but they stripped it away. Her pack, her supplies, everything. "Let me go," she screamed. Fang went berserk. Despite his healing leg, he launched at the nearest soldier with a fury that made his previous attacks look restrained. He found the throat in seconds. That soldier went down. Fang was already moving to the next. Claws, teeth, pure rage given form. But there were too many. Energy beams crisscrossed the clearing. One caught Fang in the shoulder, spinning him sideways. He rolled, came up, kept attacking. Another beam hit his side. He yelped but didn't stop. A soldier carrying a containment net finally got close enough to deploy it. The weighted edges wrapped around Fang, and he went down snarling. He tore at the net with his teeth, making progress, but 3 more soldiers piled on with another net. Then another. "Fang," Nia fought against the hands holding her. "Don't hurt him." Through the clearing, General Croth approached. His face bore fresh. Scars, 3 parallel lines down his left cheek. Old wounds starting to heal. Something clicked in Nia's memory. The night Fang had freed her before, those same marks. "Quite the reunion," Croth said, studying her. You're younger than I expected, barely more than an infant by human standards. Let him go, Nia said, her voice shaking. He's just protecting me. I'm aware, Croth gestured to the netted, struggling form of Fang. I've lost 23 soldiers to your protector. He's cost me credibility with my commanders, made me a laughingstock, so now we settle accounts. He pulled out a device, a small remote with a single button. This activates a charge built into the nets. High-voltage current, not enough to kill immediately, but more than enough to cause extreme pain, hours of it if I choose. Nia's blood went cold. No. Here's my offer. You come quietly. Submit to transport back to our base. No resistance. In exchange, I'll release the creature unharmed. You have 10 seconds to decide. Don't do it, one of the soldiers holding Nia muttered in broken human standard. He's lying. He'll kill it anyway. Croth's head snapped toward the soldier. Silence. But Nia had heard. She looked at Fang, still fighting the nets despite his injuries, still trying to reach her. She thought about the past month, everything he'd done, every soldier he'd fought, the Ripper he'd killed, all to keep her safe. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. Stay brave, little one. Okay, she said quietly. I'll come with you, let him go. Croth smiled. It wasn't pleasant. I thought you might see reason. He pressed the button. Fang convulsed as electricity coursed through the nets. His scream cut through Nia like a knife. She lunged forward, but the soldiers held her tight. You said you'd let him go, she shrieked. I lied. Croth watched Fang suffer with cold satisfaction. But thank you for your cooperation, makes transport easier. Something broke in Nia then, the fear she'd been holding for weeks, the grief for her father, the desperate hope that had just been crushed. It all crystallized into white-hot rage. You're going to regret that, she said, her voice eerily calm. Croth laughed. Am I? What's a child going to do? What happened next, Nia barely remembered later. The soldier holding her left arm shifted his grip slightly, just enough. She twisted, grabbed his weapon, and fired. Point blank into his chest plate. The impact threw him backward. She rolled, came up firing. The soldiers had underestimated her because she was small, because she was young. They forgot she'd spent a month learning to survive in an alien jungle, forgot she'd been trained by a creature that never gave up. She shot out the net's power source. Fang stopped convulsing. She kept firing, forcing soldiers to scatter, not to kill them, just to create chaos, space to move. Fang tore through the now unpowered nets like paper. His injured leg barely slowed him. He hit the nearest soldier like a missile, then the next. Nia provided covering fire, just like they'd practiced with pretend enemies during their quiet days in the cave. They fought as a team. Nia's shots drove soldiers into Fang's range. Fang's attacks created openings for Nia to advance. Two beings, different species, moving like they shared one mind. Croth tried to organize a response, but the chaos was too complete. Half his soldiers were down. The other half were trying not to die. He raised his own weapon, aimed at Nia. Fang saw it, changed direction mid-leap, flew across the clearing faster than should have been possible with his injuries. He hit Croth's arm just as the general fired. The beam went wide. Fang climbed Croth's body, claws finding purchase in armor gaps, teeth seeking vulnerable flesh. Croth screamed, not in pain but in rage and fear. He felt those claws on his face, adding new scars to the old. Felt teeth close around his throat, just enough pressure to warn but not kill. Call them off, Nia shouted, her weapon trained on the remaining soldiers. Or he takes your throat out. Croth, feeling the badger's hot breath and the pinpoint pressure of teeth against his jugular, finally understood. This wasn't an animal. This was a warrior who happened to wear fur. A thinking, planning, absolutely ruthless defender who would die before abandoning his charge. Stand down, he croaked. All units stand down. The soldiers lowered their weapons. Fang maintained his grip on Croth's throat for another 5 seconds, making a point. Then he released and dropped to the ground, positioning himself between Nia and all the soldiers. We're leaving, Nia said. You're not going to follow us because next time he won't stop at your throat, understand? Kroth, blood streaming from new facial wounds, nodded slowly. Nia backed toward the jungle, Fang limping beside her. The soldiers let them go. They'd lost the stomach for fighting a child and her insane protector. As they disappeared into the undergrowth, Kroth, second in command, approached. "Sir, should we pursue?" Kroth touched his savaged face and looked at the 9 soldiers down in the clearing. He thought about the Ripper dead, about 23 soldiers killed, about a honey badger that chose a child over its own survival and made that choice stick through sheer, bloody-minded determination. "No," he said quietly. "We don't pursue, we leave them alone." "But, sir, Command will." "Command can file whatever reports they want." Kroth stood, swaying slightly. "That creature taught me something today. Some battles aren't worth the cost, and some enemies fight with such complete commitment that victory becomes meaningless." He walked away from the clearing, leaving his soldiers to tend their wounded and wonder what exactly had just defeated them. 2 months and 3 days after the crash, Nia finally activated the emergency beacon she'd been carrying since day 1. Not because she was desperate anymore, because she was ready. She and Fang had carved out a life in the jungle. Their current shelter was a natural cave system she'd reinforced with salvaged materials. Food stores lined one wall. Water purification ran constantly from the stream. She'd even created a small garden using seeds from edible plants Fang had identified. But she couldn't stay here forever, and when Fang's leg had finally healed completely last week, she'd made the decision: time to go home. The beacon broadcast for 3 days before the response came. A human resistance fleet operating in nearby sectors had picked up the signal. They were coming. Nia spent those 3 days preparing. She packed her father's research notes, carefully preserved. The samples Fang had helped her collect. Everything that might help the resistance understand what the collective was doing in this region. Fang seemed to understand something was changing. He watched her pack with unusual intensity. When she sat down to explain, he tilted his head like always. "People are coming to take us home," she said, scratching behind his ears. "Real rescue this time. I checked their authentication codes. They're legitimate." Fang made a questioning sound. "You're coming with me, obviously." Nia pulled him close. "You think I'd leave you?" "After everything, we're a team now, forever." He leaned into her touch, that soft sound that meant contentment. The ships arrived on the 4th day. 3 dropships descended through the purple sky, kicking up dust and debris as they landed in a cleared area near the old crash site. Nia approached cautiously, Fang at her side. Soldiers emerged, but these wore human resistance armor. The lead soldier removed her helmet, revealing a weathered face with kind eyes. "Nia Akafer?" she asked gently. Nia nodded, suddenly overwhelmed. Real people, real rescue after so long. "I'm Commander Liu. We're here to take you home." Liu's eyes moved to Fang. "Is that the enhanced honey badger from your father's research manifest?" "His name is Fang. He saved my life multiple times." Liu knelt down slowly, not approaching but showing respect. "We recovered some of the crash site data, the collective logs too. We know what happened here. 23 enemy soldiers eliminated, 1 Ripper killed, all by something they called the Jungle Phantom." She looked at Fang with new appreciation. "That was him." "That was us," Nia corrected. "We survived together." The extraction went smoothly. They loaded onto the dropship, Nia insisting Fang stay by her side rather than in a containment unit. The soldiers didn't argue. Word had already spread about what this particular honey badger could do when protecting his human. As the ship lifted off, Nia watched Telos 7 shrink below them. 2 months of her life spent on that jungle moon. 2 months that had changed her from a scared child into something harder, something that survived. But they weren't safe yet. The collective fleet, still in orbit, detected the resistance ships. General Kroth's forces moved to intercept. His flagship positioned itself between the resistance and their escape vector. "We've got enemy contacts," the pilot announced. Multiple fighters inbound. Commander Liu moved to the tactical station. Can we outrun them? Not with all three dropships, they'll pick us off. Nia felt Fang tense beside her. He knew that sound in people's voices. Danger, threat. We need to buy time, Liu said. Send a distress call to the main fleet. How long until they can get here? 20 minutes minimum. We don't have 20 minutes. Liu studied the tactical display. Those fighters will shred us in 5. The ship rocked as the first enemy fire connected with. Their shields, alarms blared. Soldiers moved to defensive positions, but there wasn't much they could do against space fighters from inside a dropship. Then something unexpected happened. The collective fighters broke off their attack. They scattered, executing evasive maneuvers. On the tactical display, Liu saw why. General Croth's flagship was pulling back. A transmission came through, Croth's voice measured and cold. Resistance forces, you have clearance to leave the system. No further engagement. Liu stared at the screen in disbelief. This is a trick, has to be. Sir, the collective fleet is actually withdrawing. The sensor operator sounded equally confused. Nia understood. She moved to the communications console. Let me talk to him. Liu hesitated, then nodded. General Croth, Nia said into the transmitter. This is Nia. Why are you letting us go? A long pause, then Croth's voice quieter than before. I watched the tactical footage of your survival, all of it. The kills, the tactics, the Ripper, the escape from my trap. Another pause. That creature of yours fought an army to protect one child, never quit, never surrendered, never even considered abandoning you. His name is Fang. Fang, Croth seemed to taste the word. Tell me something, child, in all the battles did he ever retreat, even when wounded? Nia looked down at Fang, who watched her with those intelligent dark eyes. No, never. He always chose me over his own safety. That's what I thought. Croth's voice carried something that might have been respect. The collective wages war for territory, resources, strategic advantage. But what I saw in that jungle was something different, something we don't have. Loyalty beyond reason, protection beyond logic, courage beyond survival instinct. The transmission crackled with static. Go home, child. Take your warrior with you. And know that every soldier who survived your jungle will tell stories about the day a honey badger taught them what real commitment looks like. The transmission ended. The collective fleet continued its withdrawal. Liu looked at Nia with new eyes. What exactly happened down there? We survived, Nia said simply. That's all. But it wasn't all. Over the next weeks, as they traveled back to human-resistant space, the story spread. Soldiers who'd monitored the collective communications shared the reports. The jungle phantom, the creature. That killed a Ripper. The battle where a child and her protector fought their way free from a general's trap. When they finally reached the main resistance station, Nia was called to address the council. She stood before military leaders and civilians, Fang sitting at her feet wearing a small piece of armor she'd made him from collective scrap metal. Everyone wants to know how you survived, the council leader said. 2 months alone with collective forces hunting you. How is that possible? Nia thought about all the nights in the cave, the fights, the fear, the moments where giving up seemed easier than continuing. She thought about her father's last words, "Stay brave, little one." I didn't survive alone, she said. Fang protected me when I was weak, taught me to be strong, fought when I couldn't, and when I learned to fight, we fought together. She placed her hand on Fang's head. People think Earth animals are just animals, simple, instinct-driven, but that's wrong. She gestured to Fang. This is a warrior who chose loyalty over survival, who chose a child over freedom, who faced armies and monsters and never once considered abandoning his post. The collective has advanced weapons, huge ships, and trained soldiers, but they don't have this. They don't have the bond between humans and the creatures of Earth. The council murmured among themselves. Finally, the leader spoke. You're requesting that Earth animals be recognized as sentient allies in our fight. I'm stating a fact. We've been fighting alongside animals for thousands of years. Dogs, horses, birds, they're not tools, they're partners, and if we're smart, we'll start treating them that way officially. The proposal passed 3 days later. Earth animals used in resistance operations would receive the same protections and honors as human soldiers. Fang became the first official non-human combat ally in resistance records. But the real impact happened in the collective territories. General Croth's report, meant as a tactical analysis of an unusual engagement, became something else entirely. Soldiers shared it, officers studied it. The story of a honey badger that defeated an army became a legend. And across collective space, a question began to form. If one small Earth creature could fight with such determination, what happened when millions of humans decided to fight the same way? What happened when a species that bonded with fearless warriors decided they'd had enough? The collective's advance into human territory slowed. Not because of military defeats, but because soldiers started asking if the fight was worth it. If conquering Earth meant facing countless enemies who fought like that jungle phantom, who chose death over surrender, who protected their own with absolute commitment. In a small quarters on the resistance station, Nia sat on her bed with Fang curled up beside her. She was writing a letter to her father's colleagues, explaining his research, sharing his notes. Fang made his soft content sound. Yeah, Nia agreed, scratching his ears. We did good, didn't we? He looked at her with those dark, intelligent eyes. The eyes that had watched her through a month of hell and never once looked away. The eyes that had chosen a scared child and decided she was worth fighting armies for. Somewhere in collective space, General Croth looked at his scarred face in a mirror and thought about honey badgers, about commitment, about the day he learned that some creatures, when they chose something to protect, simply never let go. And across human space, in bars and briefing rooms and quiet conversations, a new phrase began to spread. When someone showed exceptional bravery or unexpected determination, they earned a particular compliment. That one fights like a honey badger. It became the highest praise the resistance could give, because everyone knew the story. The child, the crash, the jungle, the small creature that faced impossible odds and won through sheer refusal to quit. Nia and Fang had survived, but more than that, they'd shown the galaxy something it had forgotten. That size didn't matter, that fancy weapons didn't matter. What mattered was the choice to stand firm, to protect what was yours, and to never ever let go. The honey badger had made his choice on a crashed ship 2 months ago.